The finals has been a treat of a game to play. The destruction is amazing, the movement is decent depending on the class you're using, the current game modes have a nice loop to them, and the overall marketing for this game is different from how others do it nowadays. Embark Studios have done an amazing job at making this game, and I was blown away by its Steam charts during the previous beta. Being a top 4 game in Steam was astounding. I don't know if this is a testament to how good of a game the finals is, or how desperate gamers are for a new shooter that actually feels great. Or maybe both. Probably both. However, in this video, I'll talk about the few things in this game that worries me, and some things I think the devs can do to keep this game well alive after this honeymoon period is over. The first thing I would like to mention is content. And nowadays, content is king. And I know, games like Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike can go months or even years without a content update, let alone a patch. But those games are backed by Valve, and the finals is not. It's made by a new studio that can prove it can create a pretty good game. However, what will happen when that new game smell wears off and other new shooters come out, or already well-established ones launch a banger update? The player base will dwindle. And I looked everywhere to see if the devs have plans for new classes and could not find one. So I asked Reddit, and I was bombarded by a lot of jokes about Smedium, now introducing the ugly person, actual small guy, and whatnot. I think there is space for new classes since this game reminds me a lot of Team Fortress 2, and that game has more than 3. Then I saw an article about the devs saying that they don't have a content roadmap since they don't want to promise things that they can't deliver, which is a bit worrisome. Good for them for not over-promising and under-delivering, but zero info isn't quite reassuring either. I figure adding a new class would be hard since each class has so many unique weapons, abilities, and balancing it would be even more of a challenge. So what could they do? Yes, new maps would be nice. The Las Vegas arena was fun to experience on release. More guns, gadgets, and specialization would help, but the hype behind it wouldn't be the same as packaging those things as a new class. I used to play the mess out of a game called Spellbreak, and the developers didn't even give the game a new class at all. If you were someone playing the game since its alpha or beta stages, then the only new thing you got from the release onwards was some map changes, cosmetics, and one new game mode. During this time, games like Apex, Valorant were doing the same but at a faster rate, and cranking out new characters on top too. The lack of impactful and timely content was one of the main reasons why many games die and get forgotten. The finals' quick rise reminds me of how one day Splitgate took the world by storm, and within 2 months the player base dropped fast. Now, the finals will most likely last longer than Splitgate. However, that doesn't change the fact that people will check out something new and shiny, which leads them to possibly forget the previous game if that said game doesn't provide something new and shiny too. You don't have to change things every week, but I think 3 to 4 months is what I see as the sweet spot for big updates, with smaller changes sprinkled in during that time frame too. The other issues I see in this game aren't as big, like solo play, which can be rough. When I'm playing with my friends, the game is great. Solo queuing though is a new type of pain. I've played other team-based games like Valorant and Apex, and it's a lot easier to solo carry in those games than it is in this one. It's still hard to do on those titles, but it doesn't feel impossible like it does in the finals. If your teammates aren't constantly playing with you in the finals, but other teams are working as a unit, then forget about winning in the objective-based game modes. You might as well just treat it as team deathmatch or aim practice, because you're not 1v3ing a decent team that plays together. Well, maybe if you're constantly getting third parties as a solo or playing the heavy class, you might win some of those engagements, but even then that's a long shot to do consistently in one game. I think part of the problem is that the game is new and it's going to take some time to instill the idea of team play into the player base. Also at release, the number of hackers grew to a lot, but that's to be expected at this point when a new shooter drops. And I'm pretty sure Embark would do something about it. The optimization for this game is good most of the time, but there are a few moments where my game just freezes or FPS dips. Plus, there are instances where I'm still getting shot by the same person, even though I ran a corner to break line of sight. However, these are just few instances, and it doesn't happen enough to ruin the overall game for me yet. I'm just saying this because optimization is important nonetheless. It can't be forgotten as the game continues to get updates. It's one of the reasons why Valorant has so many players, because potato PCs can still play it, therefore making its accessibility and reach insanely high. With all that being said, what are some other things Embark Studios can do to avoid a drastic fall off 2 to 3 months from now? Well, adding new classes would be ideal in my opinion, but if that's too challenging to do right now, then I think they should start planting the seeds for an esports on top of adding new guns, maps, and gadgets. Tournament hype is real and can keep a game's interest stable if done right. I think at this point we can say the gameplay loop is fun, and watching the best of the best go at it will spark more interest for people as well. Another thing is adding more sense of progression, which is easier said than done. There are a good chunk of achievement junkies out there, plus close cosmetics for rank could work as well. Despite how good of a rank system Valorant has, this is one thing that Riot and other games kinda lack. I've heard many competitive players from different games complain about how underwhelming rank rewards they get in games are. And I kinda get it from a business perspective too. If someone can get something cool for free, then developing it hurts its opportunity costs versus putting that cool item in a shop for players to buy. It's also no secret that developers love catering to casuals since it can help lead to massive amounts of money, like how Fortnite has been able to do. A lot of companies just treat their sweaty and competitive consumers like an afterthought from time to time. This is because us competitive players are usually hooked already. I've seen it in Apex, where a game that grows over millions of dollars constantly has poor updates releases where the servers just don't work at all. It's crazy to me how this has happened so many times in the past, but Apex players still keep coming back to the game because they are hooked. A lot of people in the community say a lot of Apex issues are because of the engine that they use, but nonetheless, EA typically doesn't put these issues as priority number one if people keep spending money and time on the game. The same applies to those who grind rank, which shows in the rewards that they get. If Embark Studios actually gives out banger cosmetics for rank rewards, then that will give their most loyal player base more of a reason to keep coming back and play. Overall, I'm impressed with the finals and Embark Studios. They prove that they can make a game that has AAA quality. Their success with the finals excites me for their next up and coming title, Arc Raiders. No one can really predict a game's longevity, but you can possibly see patterns that give you hints to a game's outcome. I hope all my worries don't become reality for this game, because more competition in the shooter genre is great for players. It makes companies step up their game. When Valorant came out, Counter-Strike actually started to fix issues in their game.
So here's a question. How long has the SIG been okay? And you're telling me 3 days after Valorant comes out, we're hauling ass now all of a sudden? Huh? We're just kicking it into high gear and fixing something we hated forever? Okay, all right. Yeah, I see you. No one's falling for it right now, brother, okay? You better hope Valorant fails.
So I hope finals will last longer than 3 months at the top, because if it does, then everyone, including those who don't even play it, will win.